Babel, An Arcane History or The Necessity for Violence by R.F. Kuang. Where do I begin? Where do I begin? First of all, read this as a buddy read with the wonderful Sharon Joy, who you can find on Instagram and TikTok. Let's begin with the video. As you can see, heavily tabbed. This was a roller coaster of emotion. I listened to it and I read it like simultaneously sometimes. Sometimes I'd catch up physically, sometimes I'd catch up like audibly. It was the best experience, kind of like, and I'll mention them again actually later on in the review, but kind of like when I read Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. That kind of blended reading just worked beautifully for the intensity of this story. But before we, I don't even know how to, I tell you what, RG's Devilship has reviewed this recently in her, I think it's January, February and March reads for the year. She's recently posted it and she gave a fantastic synopsis in her own words that just perfectly captured this. So I'd say go to her video to get more of a personalised blurb, I would say. But for now, I will give you what it says on the fancy flap. An act of translation is always an act of betrayal. Oxford, 1836. The city of dreaming spires. It is the centre of all knowledge and progress in the world, and at its heart is Babel, Oxford University's prestigious Royal Institute of Translation, the tower from which all the power of the empire flows. Authored in Canton and brought to England by a mysterious guardian, Robin Swift thought Babel a paradise until it became a prison. But can a student stand against an empire? There's just so much more in this than can be spoken in mere words, which is a funny thing really, because this is about words and, you know, the meaning and the lengths people will go to have power, and translation, and how information gets lost because it's those in power that wants to rewrite works in favour of their beliefs. Oh my god, I'm already getting on a tangent. So straight away this reminded me of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell in terms of tone, but I'd actually say this was far more accessible, which is something that I was very shocked to find, because I think one of the main things that definitely pulled me away initially from this story and took me so long to get to it was that I thought it was going to be incredibly academic, and it is incredibly academic, but it's not, the way the prose is written is not in a, like an elite higher than thou way. I feel like it's user friendly, you know. I've always liked the idea of, you know, dark academia, but I thought I would struggle to understand the information, especially when considering Babel being so intelligent in pretty much every plot device. Every word on the page just oozed power, intelligence. It was just fantastic, but it didn't make me feel like I was stupid in any way. I felt it was holding my hand in a way, but not like patronisingly. It just made me feel like I could absorb what was being said and understand and sympathise with characters and feel rage and fury on behalf of other characters, and it was just fantastic. I felt like I was there with them. The plot was thick, the plot was intricate. We've got threads of conspiracies, beautiful detailing on the science behind silverworking, which is their magic system in this world. The conversations of interpretation, colonialism, building into this corrupt empire, you know, serving the crown and England, even though you've pretty much been abducted from your motherland and now you're bastardizing the words, but it looks like a paradise. It seems and feels like a paradise for all intents and purposes until you get into the depth of the corruption and the real conspiracy of what lies behind the reasoning that they want all these translations done, why they're taking people from their homelands, why they're utilising these words, you know. It was so powerful to read, oh my gosh. The Victorian setting was lush. I've been really enjoying reading through Victorian vibed books of late. I've been kind of getting into that a little bit more, which is sort of like an unofficial goal that I wanted to set on myself over the past couple of months, and I've sort of gravitated towards it naturally, which is a nice feeling, and this definitely fulfilled that purpose nicely. It was filled with jaw-dropping descriptions of this imagined Oxford in, I guess, what you could call an alternate history. You know, the early tour of the Institute of Language, Babel itself, was mesmerizing. I wanted to be there. I wanted to see what they were seeing. It felt so visceral, like it felt so real, you know. And then, you know, added in with the characters being so deep and fleshed out. Like, I can't think you could ever say that any of the characters in here, Robin, Rami, Victoire, Letty, none of them were ever flat. You know, everything just felt crisp and rich and full of purpose, full of storytelling, full of heartbreak, and it's just lush. It was absolutely lush. I loved that the premise of this sort of centres around language, and the etymology was so fascinating, so thorough and deep, that I felt like I was in a classroom learning these things for myself. I thought I was a student at Babel learning the power of words and translation. I loved seeing how the different languages connected, and in this case paired together to create something quite magical, which is called match pair in their magic sort of system, which is the silver working. And yet it was equally dangerous in the wrong and of course powerful hands, and kind of getting more of the conspiracy as it unravelled, and, you know, the Hermes Society, and learning about like the revolution to counteract the oppression, and just the awful things that were happening here. It was amazing. There's conversations, of course, of colonialism and racism, and even though, you know, for example, Victoire, Rami, Robin, they've all been taken from the motherlands at such an early age to integrate into English society, they're still seen as other. Like, they serve a purpose. They're used and utilised to create these amazing translations, these amazing works for silver working. Yet a lot of people still are disgusted because of the colour of their skin, because they're foreign, that they dare to wear the black robes of a scholar in Babel, you know what I mean, in Oxford. They dare to dress as them. Like, there were some really heartbreaking scenes in this, absolutely heartbreak. Some race motivated, some sexism motivated, some, there was a vivid scene, and this, you know, trigger warnings for everything pretty much, but there was a vivid scene of when Robin was still young. I think he was about 10 or so, and he was reading this book, and he just completely lost track of time. He missed an appointment he was supposed to have, and his guardian, Professor Lovell, or Professor Lovell, not too sure I pronounced that, came in and gave him a hiding, like a good hiding, proper brutalised the poor kid, just for the absent-mindedness of being lost in a story. And, you know, as readers, I'm sure we've all had a moment in time, many moments of times, where we've completely lost track of time. But to see how he went from such a pure, genuine, thrilling moment that I just felt such awe reading, like, just to see the joy of reading on the page and feeling like, oh yeah, I can relate to that, to the abruptness of him being smashed in the face, you know, beaten severely and consistently by what's supposed to be his carer and guardian. It was such a brutal change of events and an unexpected, shocking turn of events that I kind of was on my guard from then. But you can see how in the Victorian society that civility, that politeness in company just completely switches as soon as someone doesn't do what you want them to do or act in a way that you want them to act, you know. And yeah, there were so many scenes like that, so many things where each time it would chip away at our four main characters, you know, interpretation of what Babel was. They thought it was a paradise and it turned into a prison, you know. It was just such a harrowing read, but a fantastic one. As I say, I did read and listen to this sort of at the same time, and I just wanted to note that the accents and the voices that the narrator could flip between so easily was so impressive. At first he sounded like a BBC News reporter for the first time, but it was quite endearing as time went on. Absolutely loved my time in this world. I was left heartbroken, in awe at the sheer audacity of the excellence of this crafted story. I feel like it's changed me, which is so strange. There's only been a few books that I feel like I've absolutely been touched and changed. I think one of the most recent ones that I can remember from the top of my head was The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. So yeah, it's very few and far between that I get that deep feeling, you know. As you can see, I've got loads and loads of quotes. Some of these will probably be out of context, but let me pull a couple. I've got things for like thoughtful, plot development, some of the footnotes that were really interesting, general interesting things to me. Let's try and choose a slightly earlier one. Oh, this one was good. A lie was not a lie if it was never uttered. Questions that were never asked did not need answers. They would both remain perfectly content to linger in the liminal, endless space between truth and denial. Wow, there was just so many passages where I was just pausing, as you can see, pausing for a moment just to take it in and think about it. And even when I was listening to the audio, I had to stop and bookmark that area. When I went back to my physical read, I could go back and tab it in. It was a phenomenal read, and I'm gonna repeat myself now, so I'm just gonna sign off here and say, if you haven't already read Babel, please do. 5 out of 5 stars. Definitely a favourite long-lasting book for me. Kicking myself for not reading it sooner, but yeah, such an impressive read. It just did that, you know. It went there and it excelled at it. It really did. So if you guys have read Babel yourself, do let me know what you thought about it. We can have a little bit of a conversation if you like. But for now, I shall catch you in another video soon. Bye.